I am so excited for this opportunity to talk to Angel Livas. She is the producer of a fantastic panel discussion, a two-part panel discussion that's coming your way for Juneteenth. It's going to be on YouTube. And one of the reasons I'm excited to have this conversation because there are so many things happening in the world. I guess, give us a brief introduction of your background. I mean, goodness, your educational background, your professional background is phenomenal. You've worked really hard for your accolades, and I just want to make sure that everybody know who we talking to right now. Go ahead.
So I would say I'm a daughter of Detroit. I was born and raised in the suburb of the Detroit area. I went to Howard University. Shout out to HU. And like from there, I just always had a power of storytelling. Like that has been my passion. That has been one of the things that I've just felt it's part of my purpose, right? It's to be that voice to the voiceless and to really push information so that people walk away feeling like, I feel heard, I feel understood. And so this particular project is essentially in that same vein of being able to walk very purposefully, but also to unite people. I feel as though one of the things that we are seeing that's very different with the protests and the riots and all of that happening right now, that it's not just Black people. It's many nationalities and cultures and ethnicities that are coming together and like, yo, like we're not going to stand for this. Like this is no longer okay. But the one cry out that I've also heard has come from friends of mine and people who just are familiar with me, and they're just like, yeah, but Angel, we're not quite sure that we completely understand the Black experience. We want to stand beside you because we realize that people should not just be dying in cold blood, but we want to understand. And so the I Am Black production or movement, whatever you want to call it, is essentially that. It is a chance for us to tell that story, to really share with individuals so they understand what the Black experience is. What is it like for Black people to get pulled over? And the one thing that I found is that it's quite interesting. No matter what country or what state people are in, it's very similar. Either people have a process, they have something that they're just like, yeah, no, we turn the music down, you know, we trying to remember, like, okay, what's in my car? Like, you got kids in the car, y'all sit there, y'all be quiet. It's a process of things that you go through. And so capturing that is essentially our first part. So the first part is actually kind of a mini doc of these stories of several Black men who are very well educated, being able to tell the story from their lens and how it impacts their psyche when you see men of a similar hue being killed by police that you think are there to protect you.
What has been, I think ultimately in this space that we're in with digital information being right there at our fingertips and being able to see this trauma played out over and over and over again. I know that's one of the things that you all are going to address on this panel. From the feedback that you've gotten overall, what has been kind of a consensus of that type of trauma that men have been exposed to?
So it's really funny. Our mental health expert that is featured on the show, his name is Paul Bashea Williams, and he essentially says it best. He says, it's one thing to be informed. It's another to put yourself through a traumatic experience over and over again. And as you are watching these encounters on the news, some people feel like, well, I got to know what's happening. That's great. Know what's happening, but don't relive these traumatic experiences where you walk away afraid to walk out of your house or, having panic attacks. And it's not even just, if it was just this, that would be bad enough. But you're also coping with COVID-19. Yeah. So now we have these parallel viruses that equally have the power of taking your breath away. And if you think of it in that regard, it's like, yo, it will be a national state of emergency, like around mental health. When this is all said and done, there's going to be a huge mental health crisis.
One of the things that has been has really piqued my interest about this panel discussion, the way the panel discussions have been broken up into two parts, is being able to compile information, as you said, and to be enlightened, as the first panel is going to have, and then an educational component. Talk to me about why you needed these two components to complement each other for this panel.
Okay, so just to be clear, so the first part is not a panel conversation. The first part is like a mini documentary. Okay. So it's pre-recorded, it's put together to help kind of tell that story.
Right.
The second part, so to answer that part of your question then, the first part is the enlightenment, because we want to make sure that other cultures understand really what the Black experience is, right?
Okay.
So it's that part, but then it's also kind of like a validation for Black people, right? Because a lot of times we understand because we've gone through it, and there may be conversations in our household. But when you hear other people that look like you, that are your prominent people, and they can tell you similar stories to what you've gone through, you're like, oh, I'm not alone. I feel validated in what my experience has been. And some men shared that they were embarrassed, that they never even talked about it until that moment that they shared it with me, where they were just like, it emasculates you. It makes you feel like, especially when these situations are happening and your girlfriend or your wife is right beside you. And you're being thrown to the pavement and told, shut up, boy, and slapped in the face in front of your wife or your girlfriend. That does something to how you feel as a man, right? And so that is why we told those stories, and we captured them and kind of packaged it in more of a educational type, hey, we want to make sure you understand this, right? The reason why it was important for us to have the panel conversation is because now that you've been enlightened, how are we going to evolve? And so that evolution type panel with such prominent people as Michael Eric Dyson, as Reverend Dr. Howard John Wesley from Alfred Street Baptist Church, and the chairman of 100 Black Men, Thomas Storch, to have people like that to be able to say, okay, we just saw this, but here's how we're going to move forward. I don't want us to leave this situation not having some type of idea or an ammunition to have an action plan. I think it's great to go out and protest, but talking only goes so far. What actions are you going to back it with? And one of our speakers in the documentary, he talks about Black people as a whole, we have a problem setting goals. We'll set immediate goals, like today I'm going to go out and I'm going to protest. But what's the long haul goal? What are we saying? At the end of this, we're changing this legislature to be X, Y, or Z. We're going to change this policy to represent this. That's what we as a people have to come together and say, I'm not going to wait on you to do it. And that's what this conversation is about. I'm not depending on any one person to come to me with a solution. Let's join together, because my mind is no better than your mind. So if we can work together and come up with some powerful ideas, imagine what we can do. But I think that's a part, like, we're so used to being siloed or told this is how this will be done. I think that time is over of somebody telling us what to do. We have to stand up and take action and make it happen.
With the documentary piece that you put together and the various cases that have been put in front of us, where we've seen the video documentation of what's happening to our people, how do we begin to start to even devise a plan? Because I think sometimes when we see this and we are going to be enlightened in the first part of this series that's gonna air, it's on YouTube. The first part of this series that's gonna air, I think one of the things that is hard to process is like, okay, we've marched, We've talked to people who are our leaders. We have said we need to have police reform. Now there is the conversation about defund the police, which don't mean abolish the police. So there's these different pieces to the puzzle that are coming together that I do believe is absolutely going to be highlighted in the first part of your documentary. What do you want people to walk away from that piece, outside of just, okay, I'm enlightened, but of the images that they're going to see, of the people that they're going to see, to speak specifically in that part as a producer? What was your overall plan when you decided to do it in two pieces and to piece that part in, especially for people to understand what we've been through, what it looks like, and then where we're going?
So 2 parts to your question, right? Because it's almost like it depends on who's watching it and what I want them to get out of it. As a Black person, I want you to see you.
Okay.
Right? Like, I want you to be like, yo, I'm not the only person this has happened to, right? But then also just the economic imbalance of us as a people as well. I've literally just had this conversation with my team today. I truly believe that if you think about lower class Black society, right? They may think middle class and upper class Black people don't get bothered by the police in the same ways in which they do. It's not true, right? So I think that's another thing that will kind of come out in watching the piece. And I don't want to give away everything because I want people to actually watch it. But I think the other element is for people who are not African American, Black, or brown. I think it will just create an awareness, because I don't think that they understand. We get pulled over, we may have this encounter before we show up to work, and you wonder why we have an attitude, or you don't understand what we just went through. And me telling you, it doesn't change the situation of how you want me to show up. So if you at least have an awareness of, this is my reality, this is what I have to go through, and it's something that up till now you've never understood or cared to understand. So to me, making this conversation available, where we all are a part of this conversation now. You can no longer say that you don't know. You can no longer say that you're unaware. Now we're evening the playing field so everybody understands. It doesn't just happen to thugs, as President Trump has said. It doesn't just happen to lower class people. No, it's a Black thing. I'm sorry. And at the end of the day, it should not be. It should not be a you, a me, or a we thing. It should be a us thing collectively. Like, how are we all standing for justice? How are we all standing to ensure that we have an equal playing field? And just like, just to give you the genesis of this project, I have two boys. Okay, I have a 5-year-old and a 7-year-old. And I remember when they were first born, and we live in a predominantly white area. People would come and always, oh my God, they're so well behaved. Oh, they're so cute. They're so this, they're so that, right? And it was in those moments that I started to think like, oh my God, like y'all just coming up to our table at dinner and just stopping the whole show to talk about these boys. And then it was, well, at what point do they turn from being these cute Black boys to a threat? And 4 years ago or 3 years ago, when that really started playing in my mind, and now we fast forward, and that was when like the whole Black Lives Matter first started, you know, with training and all of that. Yeah, right? And now we're here, and I'm like, okay, we're right back at the same spot. Yeah. And recently, when a friend answered my question of when do the Black boy become a threat, and they said 11 or 12, then I realized, okay, well, if I wait and I do nothing for another 4 or 5 years, my sons are in that bracket. So what can I do today to change the conversation? What can I do today to change the trajectory of what could potentially be my children's future? So this is more than an enlightenment and an awakening. This is we woke. Coronavirus, we woke. We have been sitting in the house. People have been in quarantine. All you've had time to do is scroll news feeds, read newspapers, watch TV.
Mm-hmm.
You're aware now.
Yeah.
So now that everybody is on an equal playing field,
Mm-hmm.
we have all been secluded in isolation.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't say that you don't understand systematically what is happening and what's going wrong. What are we going to do to change it?
Why do you think this moment in time was the turning point? What sets this aside from the Trayvon Martins or the Eric Garners or the Fidel Castillo? Like, what was do you think the moment that people were, because we've seen videotapes, we've seen people running away from the cops and get gunned down in their back. We've seen a kid on a playground, literally. We've seen a man walking in Walmart and, picked up a BB gun that wasn't in the box. We've seen all of these things on video before. So why do you think this particular death was the catalyst that sparked the revolution?
Coronavirus.
Okay.
I feel like people have been sitting and watching. All of those other cases, life was still in constant rotation. You still had to show up to work. You still had to get all these other things done. You still had everything else. Right now, there's 40 million people unemployed?
Yeah.
It's a different story. 2020 changed the game, period. It's different. And so when you look at how he died as well, it wasn't by a gun. It wasn't by, there wasn't any resistance. There wasn't anything that anybody could say that man did. Right? With Aubrey, they were like, oh, well, there were break-ins. He had a record. Da, 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 da. There were things that came up that they were like, it's okay. There were excuses, right? This one, what you gonna say? When they released the cameras and it showed the entire encounter, there's no more excuses. There was nothing for you to say as a counter attack. Nothing. And so when you look at that and he wasn't gunned down, and you look at how he died, and you hear how he's telling them, I can't breathe. And then when you see that there are other officers around and no one intervenes, no one says, dude, like, you can let up, like, we got him, like, let's get him in the car. Why wouldn't you just put him in the car?
And he was in the car and he took him out the car. Yeah.
That
part too.
Right. So all of these things, it leaves you like, how can you stand or see it and not say anything? How can you and say that you're for the people, or say that it's something that, you have Black friends and you love Black people, and how can you see that and continue on with life and you still sitting in your house and you don't have a job and you don't have anywhere that you're running off to? So now there's time. 2020 has, like I said, it's evened the playing field, and it's made it where, what you gonna say? What's your excuse this time?
I love that you have enlisted men that have a rapport with the community, are trusted, and that really are going to speak to what those next steps are. So I'm really excited to see this project come to life. Was this something that you were, you've done many projects previously, podcasts and TV shows, and won all of these awards. What does it mean to you to produce a project of this magnitude and so significant to the culture? Which you've had significant projects to the culture anyway, but like this particular project is very special. It's very enduring to what a lot of people need right now.
For me, this project, if I can be truly transparent, was definitely not that of my own. I would say that, so I do a weekly prayer breakfast, and after the prayer breakfast, one of our artists was speaking on how he had been pulled over by the police, and he told the story.
Mm-hmm.
And then knowing the artist, I'm like, really, you? Like, you had this happen? So it goes to even me as a Black person not thinking that. And when he talked about how he was drugged out of the car with his children in the back seat and them screaming and crying, it did something to me, right? Yeah. And I initially, like I said, in talking about my kids, I was going to do some type of campaign of like for moms of young Black boys, essentially saying something along the lines of like, we're doing this or we're standing against this for them, type of thing, right? Yeah. Had a whole idea. God stepped in and said, no, baby, your idea, your vision isn't big enough. Mm-hmm. And when I heard that story, God just started dropping things in my lap, in my mind. And that was, no lie, less than 2 weeks ago. So wow. This project, that was less than 2 weeks ago, on my honor. And the website was done in 2 days. Everything, every person who agreed to work with the project, it came together where I can't take credit. It's one of those things where when you know how God works and you just have to submit to it, mm-hmm. and just realize that your job is to only execute and to be the vessel. Yeah, that is all I am. And it's funny because somebody said that's why your name is Angel, because you're God. And I mean, like, honestly, like I can't take the credit for it, but like I said, less than 2 weeks out, and this is where we are.
Well, it is a beautiful place to be. This is going to drop on Juneteenth. I'm excited to see the work that you and the team has put into this. You are definitely doing something special with your gifts, and your gifts make room for you. And so this is definitely one of those moments. And I'm excited to see what's going to happen with this project. I wouldn't be surprised if we see it on Netflix or something like that. Like, it's pretty exciting, especially with the accompanying documentary. So I am definitely excited. You mentioned a website. What is that website that people can go to? I know that it'll be streamed on YouTube, but how is this going to be disseminated to the public for them to consume and digest and then get to work?
Yeah, so you can go to iamblack.org. That's the website. You can actually access the video on June 19th at 7 p.m. directly from our website at iamblack.org. Afterwards, I'm sure there'll be promotion of it. We're talking to some networks that are interested in potentially streaming it on their networks as well. So, definitely just stay connected with iamblack.org. And you can also follow me on my Instagram. It's Angel and Livas. So Angel and the letter Livas. And I will always be, populating information about the project there as well.
Well, I am excited about what you have coming up for Juneteenth. Obviously, Juneteenth is Emancipation Day, and it's a beautiful day for Black folks and those that love Black folks and those that celebrate the culture, want to be in the fold and appreciate what we bring to the world, because we definitely built this on our backs. So for it to drop on that day, very intentional, very special. And so again, really appreciate you bringing this project to light, and I'm excited to share this project with my audience. Anything else you want to leave with the people?
No, just definitely check it out, share it, and definitely be engaged in the conversation. Don't just watch, share your thoughts. It's important that we don't hold back who we are and what we have to say, because your voice matters.
That's right. Your voice matters. iamblack.org. Thank you so much for this opportunity. I am, two very powerful words. Before we get out of here, what does that statement mean to you, and the words that follow that statement? What does that mean to you?
For I Am Black?
Yeah.
So for me, I am is the most high kind of affirmation and chant. And so when you own who you are, when you own all of your existence, and I think sometimes we as Black people, we shy away from our Blackness. Mm-hmm. We shy away, like we don't want to be too Black. Mm-hmm. You don't want to be And so even being able to say too Black, well, what exactly is too Black? You know, we don't want our hair to be too Black. We don't want, there's so many different things about being Black that has such a negative connotation. And it's so funny that you asked me this, because I actually had a vision of this before you even asked the question. So this is really funny. And it was before we even did the interview. And it was, a lot of people, unless they see me, they don't even know that I'm Black. And so for me as the producer of this, for me as the person who grew up in a suburb called Farmington Hills in Michigan, where in elementary school, me and my brother, it was one other Black family. At the end of the day, Angel, I am Black. And I'm not ashamed of that. I'm not, you know, there's power in being Black. And when you own your Blackness, when you own all of who you are, you can walk in greatness.